The Bible never tells us her name. For 12 years, this woman had been disappearing, slowly, a little more every year, until she had almost vanished entirely while she was still alive. And somehow, it is fitting that she reaches us with no name at all, because being unknown was the whole shape of her life. Let me tell you what those 12 years were actually like, because if you rush past it, the ending will not land the way it should. She had a condition the Bible describes plainly. She had been bleeding continuously for 12 years. Now we hear that and we think of it as a medical problem, and it was. But in her world, it was so much more than that, and this is the part we miss. Under the law she lived under, a woman who was bleeding was considered ceremonially unclean. And not just her. Anything she sat on became unclean. Anyone she touched became unclean. If she brushed against you in the market, you would have to go home and wash and be considered unclean until evening. So think about what that does to a person over 12 years. She could not go to the temple. She could not worship with everyone else. We are not told whether she had a husband, but it is hard to imagine a marriage surviving 12 years of it. She could not hold a child without making the child unclean. She could not embrace her own mother. For 12 years, not one person had been able to touch her without paying a price for it. 12 years without a hand on her shoulder. 12 years without a hug. 12 years of watching people instinctively step back when she came near. And it is the small things that would have hollowed her out the most. The festivals where the whole town gathered and danced and ate together, and she had to watch from a distance on the outside because she could not be in the press of people. The weddings she could not attend. The way conversations would go quiet and a little stiff when she approached, and how she learned to read that stiffness and spare everyone the trouble by simply not approaching. The children who were told gently but firmly, "Do not go near her." 12 years of being the woman that mothers steered their little ones away from. 12 years of being a warning instead of a person. Do you understand what that would do to you? It is not only the body that suffers in something like that. It is the soul. You learn slowly to make yourself small. You learn to take the back routes through town. You learn to come to the well when no one else is there. You learn to apologize for existing, to keep your eyes down, to never be the reason someone has to step away. You learn to disappear because disappearing hurts a little less than being avoided. After 12 years, she would have become an expert at being invisible. It would have been the only safety she had left. And the Bible adds one more detail that breaks my heart every time. It says she had spent everything she had on doctors, that she had suffered a great deal under many of them, and that instead of getting better, she had only grown worse. So she was not only sick and untouchable and alone, she was broke. She had handed over every coin she owned, chasing a cure, trusting one physician after another, getting her hopes up and having them crushed again and again, until the money was gone and the hope was gone, and all that was left was the bleeding and the silence. If you have ever poured everything you had into trying to fix something, your health, a marriage, a child, a situation, and watched it get worse anyway no matter what you did, then you already know this woman. You know the particular exhaustion of hope that has been disappointed too many times. You know what it is to run out of money and energy and people, and to be left alone with the thing you could not fix. That is who was standing at the back of the crowd that day. Hold her there for a moment, because now everything is about to change. There was a man moving through her town, and his name was Jesus, and by now the whole region had heard of him. They said he healed people. Not sometimes. They said he healed everyone who came. And on this particular day there was an enormous crowd around him, because an important man, a synagogue leader named Jairus, had just fallen at his feet begging him to come heal a dying daughter. So Jesus was on his way to save a little girl, and the whole town was pressing in around him, everyone shouting, everyone reaching, everyone wanting something. And somewhere, at the very back of all of it, was the invisible woman. Now I want you to feel the impossible math she was doing in her head, because it tells you everything about how desperate she had become. She wanted to get to Jesus, but she was unclean. The law said she should not even be in that crowd, pressing against all those people, making every one of them unclean as she passed. If anyone recognized her, if anyone realized what she was, she could be shamed, driven out, maybe worse. And to actually approach a holy teacher, a rabbi, and touch him? That was unthinkable. That would make him unclean. It was the most forbidden thing she could possibly do. So she made a plan, and the plan is the saddest, most beautiful thing in the whole story. She would not ask him for anything. She would not stand in front of him and tell him her need like Jairus had. She did not believe she was allowed to do that. Instead, she thought, if I can just touch his clothes, even the edge of them, I will be healed. Just the clothes, just the hem. She would not trouble him. She would not be seen. She would sneak her healing out of the back of him like a thief, take it and disappear again, and he would never even have to know she had been there. That is the prayer of someone who has been invisible too long. She did not even feel worthy enough to be noticed by the one she was reaching for. She just wanted the help without the attention, because attention had only ever meant rejection. Let me get what I need and vanish. Do not look at me. Please do not look at me. And so she began to push forward through the crowd. And I want you to be in that crowd with her for a moment, because every single step was its own small terror. Picture it. The press of bodies in the heat, the smell of dust and sweat and animals, everyone shouting over everyone, elbows and shoulders everywhere. And down low, moving against all of it, this woman, bent over, eyes fixed on the ground, because she cannot risk meeting anyone's gaze. She is doing the one thing she has spent 12 years never doing. She is pushing into people, touching them, making every one of them unclean as she passes, praying none of them notices, praying no face turns down toward her and freezes in recognition. Her heart is slamming against her ribs. Every instinct she owns is screaming at her to turn back, to go home, to stay small and safe and invisible, the way she has trained herself to be for over a decade. And she ignores all of it. She keeps going, lower and lower, until all she can see is a forest of feet and the dragging hems of robes, and she is searching that forest for one particular hem, the edge of one particular cloak, getting closer, almost there, reaching. And she got close enough, and she stretched out her hand, the same hand no one had held in 12 years, and she touched the edge of his cloak. And immediately, the Bible says, the bleeding stopped. She felt it in her body. After 12 years, in an instant, the thing that had ruined her life simply ended. She felt the change rush through her, and she knew that she was healed. And her plan had worked perfectly. She had it. She could disappear now, slip back into the crowd, go home, and finally, quietly, start to live. No one had seen. No one had to know. Except for one thing she had not counted on. Jesus stopped. In the middle of that crushing, shouting crowd, on his way to a dying child, with hundreds of people touching him from every side, he stopped walking, and he turned around, and he asked a question that made no sense to anyone there. He said, "Who touched my clothes?" Because he had felt it, out of an entire town pressing against him, the careless bumping of hundreds of hands. He had felt that one trembling touch at the edge of his garment. He felt her, the one person in that whole crowd who was trying not to be felt at all. The one who had spent 12 years making sure no one would ever notice her was the one he noticed. But he felt her. His disciples thought he had lost his mind. They actually pushed back on him. They said, "Look at this crowd crushing in on you. Everyone is touching you, and you are asking, 'Who touched me?'" It was a fair point. Hundreds of people were touching him, but the disciples were measuring touch by pressure, by who was closest, who was loudest, who was shoving hardest. Jesus was measuring it by something else entirely, and among all that noise, he had felt the one touch that was made of pure, desperate, last resort faith. The quietest touch in the crowd was the only one he turned around for. And now picture her. She is already a few steps away, healed, almost free, almost gone. And she hears him ask who touched him, and her heart drops through the floor. Because this is the exact thing she had built her entire plan to avoid, to be seen, to be named, to be exposed in front of everyone as the unclean woman who had dared to touch a holy man. Every fear of 12 years came rushing back at once. And here is what she does, and it is one of the bravest things in the Bible. The Bible says she came, trembling with fear, and fell down before him and told him the whole truth, in front of the entire crowd, everything. The 12 years, the blood, the doctors, the money, the plan, the touch. She knelt there in the dirt and she let herself be fully seen, the one thing she had been hiding from for over a decade, and she waited for the rejection she was certain was coming. This is the moment. Everything in the story has been walking toward these next few seconds. The whole crowd is silent now, watching. The unclean woman is on the ground. The holy teacher is standing over her. By every rule she had ever known, this was where the shame would fall. This was where he would step back or rebuke her or recoil from the woman who had made him unclean in front of everyone. And instead, he looked down at her, this trembling, used up, invisible woman that the world had spent 12 years stepping away from. And the first word out of his mouth was not a rebuke, it was a name. He called her daughter. I need you to stop and feel the weight of that word, because it is, quietly, one of the most staggering single words in the Gospels. Daughter. It is the only time in any of the Gospels that Jesus is recorded addressing a woman directly as daughter. He had many titles for many people, but this one, this tender family word, he saved it, and he spent it here, on her, on the woman everyone else had written off. The first human being in 12 years to reach toward her in love did not just heal her body, he pulled her into a family. He looked at the most untouchable person in the crowd and called her his own. She had come hoping to steal a little healing and stay a stranger. He would not let her leave a stranger. He stopped the entire procession in front of everyone on his way to save a dying girl for the express purpose of making sure this woman did not slip away thinking she was nobody. He wanted her to know that she had been seen fully, and that being seen by him was not the disaster she had spent 12 years dreading. It was the thing that made her whole. And then he said the rest of it. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering. Go in peace. The word he used for peace there is a word that means so much more than calm. It means wholeness. It means everything put back together. It means the way things were supposed to be before any of this broke. He was not just sending her away with a healed body. He was sending her back into a life she had been locked out of for 12 years. Back to the temple. Back to the table, back into reach of every person who had been stepping away from her. He was handing her back her whole life, her place among people, her right to be touched and held and known. Go in peace. Go be whole. Go be a daughter and a neighbor and maybe a wife and maybe a mother and a person who can worship out loud with everyone else again. Go live. And I do not want you to miss where he was when he stopped to do all of this. Remember, he was not standing around with time on his hands. He was on his way to the house of Jairus, where a 12-year-old girl was dying, and the father was frantic, and every second mattered. Jesus was in the middle of an emergency, rushing to save a child, with a desperate parent pulling him forward. And in the middle of that, he stopped. For her. He let the urgent thing wait so that one invisible woman would not leave thinking she was nobody. Sit with that if you have ever felt like a burden. If you have ever decided not to call your children because they are busy and you do not want to be a bother. If you have ever stayed quiet about your pain because everyone else has bigger things going on. If you have ever felt like an interruption to other people's important lives, because the God of the universe, in the middle of the single most urgent errand in that whole chapter, decided that one overlooked woman was worth stopping the entire procession for. You are not an interruption to him. You have never once been a bother. There is no errand he is too busy for, no emergency that makes you a distraction. The thing you apologize for, taking up his time, is the very thing he stops everything to give you. But he felt her. That is the line I cannot get past. In all that noise, he felt the one who was trying to disappear. Now, I have to be careful and honest with you here, because this story gets misused, and I do not want to add to your pain if you are carrying something that has not gone away. I am not telling you that if your faith is just strong enough, your body will be healed and your suffering will end in an instant like hers did. That is not what this story promises, and anyone who tells you that your illness or your loss is still here because you did not believe hard enough is handing you a lie, and a cruel one. Plenty of faithful people reached and were not healed in this life. The deepest miracle in this story is not actually the body. The bleeding stopping is real, and it matters, but it is not the part that is promised to you and me. The part that is promised to you and me is the part where he stopped. Because here is the thing that is true for every single person hearing this, whether your particular suffering has lifted or not. The God of the universe, on his way to somewhere urgent, surrounded by 1,000 louder voices, feels the quiet, trembling, half-ashamed reach of the one person who is sure they do not even deserve to be noticed. He feels you. He turns around for you. And when you finally stop hiding and let yourself be fully seen, the whole truth, the parts you are ashamed of, the years you have wasted, the money you lost, the hope that got crushed, what you will find standing over you is not the rejection you have been bracing for your whole life. It is a face full of tenderness and a voice that calls you by a family name. So let me bring this all the way to you, wherever you are sitting right now. I think there is a good chance that some of you have become experts at being invisible too. Maybe not because of an illness, though for some of you it is exactly that. A body that has been failing for years, a diagnosis nobody else really wants to hear about anymore. But for others, it is different. It is the widow who has learned that she is the extra one at every gathering now, the odd number, so she stops going. It is the older man who feels like a burden to his own children, so he stops calling, so he will not be a bother. It is the person who has carried the same private shame or the same chronic pain or the same quiet loneliness for so many years that they have just accepted it and learned to take the back routes and stopped expecting anyone to really see them. You have made yourself small because small felt safer than being avoided. I understand that. So did she. And I want you to hear from the most overlooked woman in the New Testament that the disappearing is not the end of your story. There is someone who measures a touch differently than the world does. The world notices the loud and the strong and the ones who shove to the front. He notices the trembling hand at the back, the one that is barely reaching at all, the one that is almost too ashamed to try. The faintest, most uncertain reach in your direction he feels, and he stops. But he felt her, and he feels you. So here is what I want to leave you with, and then I will let you sit with it. You do not have to reach perfectly. She did not. She reached with a trembling hand and a half-formed, almost superstitious hope and a plan to run away afterward, and it was enough. Because the power was never in the strength of her grip. It was in the one she was reaching for. You do not have to come to him with your whole life figured out and your faith all polished. You can come the way she came, broke and exhausted and ashamed and barely believing, reaching for the edge of him because you do not feel worthy of more. That reach is enough. He has never once turned around to rebuke the trembling hand. He turns around to call it daughter. He turns around to call it son. And whatever you have spent years hiding, whatever made you start taking the back routes through your own life, you can stop running from being seen. Because the thing you are most afraid he will see is the exact thing he is reaching back toward, not with disgust, but with a tenderness that has your name in it. You were never invisible to him, not for one of those 12 years, not for one of yours. He felt every single reach. He was just waiting for you to turn around and let him call you what you have always been to him. So if you have been the invisible one, if you have learned to make yourself small, I want you to do one small thing. The next time you feel that old urge to disappear, to apologize for taking up space, to slip out the back so no one has to deal with you, I want you to remember that there is a crowd in the Gospel of Mark, and 1,000 louder people in it, and the one he stopped everything for was the one trying hardest not to be seen. And then reach anyway, even trembling, even barely. He will feel it. He always does. If this story found something in you, you do not have to say what it is. But if you want to, you can leave one word down below, just one. The thing you have been carrying in secret for too long, so that someone else who has also been disappearing can scroll by and see they were never the only one reaching from the back of the crowd. And maybe, together, we can all stop hiding from the only one whose attention was never something to fear, because he felt her. The quietest, most frightened, most invisible touch in the whole crowd. And he turned around, and he called her daughter, and he gave her back her life. He has been feeling your reach this whole time. You can stop hiding now. He has only ever been turning around to call you home.